You're listening to the A County Down Under podcast with me, your host, Caroline McKenna. This is a podcast about being real, about the highs and lows of life. Whether you're living abroad or you're back home, there's a lesson in every episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Before we get into the podcast episode, guys, I would love if you could please do me a favour and just stop what you're doing right now and subscribe to the podcast. And make sure to give the podcast a rating at the end. It makes such a difference to where my podcast ranks in the charts. So I know so many of you listen and you just don't subscribe. So please, for me, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, and make sure to head over to my website and check out my Sunrise social communities all over the world. So if you're watching my Instagram or TikTok and dream of that life in Australia, you don't have to travel to the other side of the world to enjoy the lifestyle that we live. Check out my Sunrise social communities all over the world for you to go to each week. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Today we are doing something a little bit different. I am joined by, I would say, a good friend of mine. I feel like I've known you for a really long time, but this is the first time we've met. And it's a bit weird because I'm in his studio interviewing him on my podcast. Domhnall, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
No bother, it's a pleasure to be here. All right.
Good.
It's good to finally meet you.
I know, I feel like I've known you for a really long time. Yeah. I have just recently moved home and been introduced to some amazing people, and you were one of the names that popped up a lot for me through mutual friends, and I had to give your podcast a listen then one day. I know it's very hard whenever you do podcast yourself to actually find time to sit and listen to one. So when I'm travelling, I always try and stick a podcast on, and I must say I was absolutely inspired by yours, really inspired. A lot of times with the kind of episodes I do, it can be quite heavy stuff, and I like to listen to light-hearted things, so it's not too often I get to sit and fully engross myself in something as deep as yours. And I think it was very inspirational for the area that we're from, for a guy to come out and share his story the way you have. And for those who don't know, I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit more and talk about your journey.
No, thanks very much, firstly, and I think it's a really important space, Caroline, because I think, we'll get into it a wee bit more, but I think with being sort of, perceived as like this macho sort of person playing hurling and stuff for Antrim and sort of had the world at my feet, my life went spirally, really, really wrong, do you know what I mean? But on the other side of it, having the platform now that I kind of have and built a wee community, I was like, I need to do something. And I feel like it's my sole purpose in life to show people, not tell people, because we can all talk, show people that we can all have a better quality life through opening up and being vulnerable and having these deep chats. So it's just creating this space, and that's the whole idea behind Let's Face It. But I suppose a wee bit about me, as I said there, I did kind of have the world at my feet, and I was sort of going that way in life right up until probably 18. And then I had a lot of trauma going on as a kid and stuff like that, and I turned to alcohol and drugs whenever I was in and around uni level. Now this story could fill 3 podcasts, so we'll put it in a nutshell, but I think that, just to put it in the context a wee bit, I grew up sort of, there was alcoholism within my family, so I always grew up not wanting to be that. So I was like, I'll never drink, I'll never take drugs. Wasn't even that interested in women, I just wanted to be the best hurler, the best footballer in Antrim, and that would have been me happy. And then upper sixth, I got my A levels, got accepted in St Mary's Decent College, all this, 3 colleges, all stars. I actually played both national leagues for Antrim, seniors, whenever I was upper sixth, so looking into my life, I was like fucking John Tucker, that type of thing, everyone just wanted to be, it was kind of cool. I was head boy in the school, but I was just dying inside. And any time, do you ever see that advert where the guy's out partying with all his mates, he comes home and puts the mask off, and he's like, that's the kind of connection I have with me. So my friends thought they knew me more than I actually knew me, if that makes sense. So I got to the stage then, get into university and mystery tours and all this crack, and I'm not a hypocrite, I'm all for people going out and drinking and having the crack, and I actually trying to promote it within my teams and stuff now, because I think it's a great way of bonding, but not whenever you have all that baggage going on as I had from a kid, and I just found drinking, it was like fucking a new lease of life. It was like 10-year-old Domhnall going and playing a hurling match. That sort of energy and that sort of escape and that sort of like, the whole world just stood still for me to be in this sort of world where I can like gain confidence and forget about all these problems that are going on in my head. Like, drink done that for me, and then I remember in the Holy Lands again, I'll never forget this night, the boy put out a plate and says, "Do you want a line of coke?" And I think this is important because I think we live in a society where if we feel like we don't do something, then we don't feel a part of something. And I felt like I had to do that to feel a part of it, because although I've always been a part of teams and always been a part of like big groups of people, I've never felt so alone. I've always felt alone. So I always felt like I needed to get into something, to be part of something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it's just even on what you're saying there. I went to St Mary's,
Okay.
and the mystery tours, the Holy Lands. I look back on it now and I think, how did we do what we did? Like, it was 5 or 6 nights a week, back to back drinking, getting up for uni, going into lectures, not listening to anything that was going on in lecture, wondering when can I go home, have a disco nap to go out and do it again.
Yeah.
And I just think that what we're living in now, it's very true. Like, our culture is connecting through alcohol and binging. And when I was at uni, I'm a little bit older, but we didn't really have the drug scene in the Holy Lands, and I know that right now there's a massive crisis going on there with the drug culture. And I get it, I know what you're saying, you can be surrounded by people but feeling extremely lonely.
Yeah. So like I then I took it, and it was like this instant relief, like this energy, this sort of, it's hard to describe, do you know what I mean? But it was again back to that sort of 10-year-old escapism, and it was just self-destruct, because I knew that drugs, and especially cocaine and alcohol, give me a release that hurling and football no longer give me, and it gave me a confidence around women or doing different things that I was like, okay, let's have a bit of this. I lasted 6 months in uni. I spent more time in the bar next door, and it was then that I just started running. And the one thing that I've learnt, like, I always thought that the grass would have been greener on the other side. So say my uni friends or my St John's friends, if they were getting to know me so much, being like, oh Jesus, Donald's drinking a bit too much, or he's at this or he's at that, I'd be like, boom, change friend group. Like, I actually moved clubs. Went to America a couple of times, telling people like, oh, I got offered all this money to go play football in America, but I was running. Came back then, moved to England, you know, just constantly running this period of my life. And like, the end of it then was really, really tragic, because I ended up in England at the edge of my bed in Birmingham, like, on my own, and not wanting to be here anymore. But if all this stuff's still going on in my head, because I could never just be honest with anybody, could never tell anyone what was going on in my head. And then I came back, was living in Belfast for a while. I managed to come home with a few quid, because I was getting paid to play hurling and stuff. And I came home with like 22 grand, and I was like, do you know what, I was 21 at this, 21 now, and I was like, do you know what, I come home with this, get a deposit for a house, like, get a job, and then everyone will think my life's perfect again, and I can just go back to St John's and everything will be rosy dozy. I'll get my old friends back, and it'll just be right. That was just a period in my life. And within 6 months, all that 22 grand was gone. I cut my nose or whatever, facilitating other addicts to be with me, to make me feel like what I was doing was normal. And
what made you, sorry to interrupt you, but what made you slip back into those habits? Because it could be easily done where you can kind of, you know, go out and change your life a lot and come back with that good bit of money. But was there a particular friendship group or environment that you find yourself coming back into, or was it a mindset thing? What was it, that triggering thing that made you go like from I'm going to put a deposit on that house to I'm back in the shitter? Because it's easily done here, you know, if you fall into the wrong mood and energy, people around you with that same mindset mentality. Do you think it was friendship groups that maybe you'd outgrown?
No, I think it was all internal. I think, like, without deep change within yourself, then there's no deep change within yourself. I could change all the externals and without looking at the real problem, and I was always the real problem. Now, I'll get into it now in 2 seconds of what the actual problem was, but I think that the more and more you jump and the more and more you try to impress different people, the more and more you're just so much not comfortable in your own skin, like, do you know what I mean? So it was nothing to do with like people around me. It was nothing to do with like people not like loving me. By the way, like I pushed myself away from a lot of people too. Like, but I got to the stage then where I was just homeless and on the streets and not being honest with people, and it was like you'd see my social media there. Our Eamon, who's a trauma man, let's face it, he has Down syndrome, and we're like best of friends, and like I'd have a special relationship with him and my granny, and like I've told this a few times, like I woke up under my granny's porch one morning and she opened the door and she was crying her eyes out, and our Eamon's over the top of her shoulder crying his eyes out, and they're like, please don't just go get some help. Like, and the state of me, like I was just terrible, and it was the end, and I knew like if you don't get help, like there's funeral coming here, definitely. And it was then, it'll actually be 4 years ago on the 3rd of June here, 2 days. I phoned up Kiomora, Sister Concilio's in Uri, and was like, I need help. And I went in on the 10th of June, and I was like, do you know what, for me to like get a better quality of life, like what my purpose is today, I need to start being fucking honest. Like I need to be honest, no matter, like I knew that there would have been, you know, challenges within my family. I knew I wouldn't speak to some people again. I knew it would have been really tough, but like whenever I was a kid I was sexually abused, and I think that was the madness that was going on inside my head, that I couldn't then, you know, I couldn't get it out in any other way only than a bag of coke, you know what I mean? And like I mentioned there, 18 years of age, being in St Mary's and stuff, like I found myself standing in the middle of Kremlin, which is a gay bar in Belfast, at 18 years of age, looking around me. Not that there's nothing wrong with that, but I mean like questioning your sexuality, not knowing what you are because of these things that have happened, and it's a very, very confusing place to be in when you're 18, whenever you're supposed to be out and partying and seeing girls and living that type of life. And I think that it was scary, like, do you know what I mean? So being honest, and I went and had that conversation with my counsellor, and it's mad, Caroline, because it was 10 minutes the conversation, and I just went to myself, don't know what the fuck. You went all through all them years, all that madness for a 10-minute conversation, and you just feel so much later. Now the problem like didn't go away, and it's still something that I'm like working on every day in terms of like trying to be able to like accept love and give love and all this crack, and feel like I'm worthy of love and stuff like that. But it's an awful lot easier when we can sit here and talk about it. Do you know what I mean? And it's class. So that's my story in a nutshell.
I mean, it's so inspiring, Domhnall, that you've gone through all this, and I mean, I can feel like the glow off you. I feel like you're in a new lease of life and you've got your purpose now, but that is so challenging what you've done, and to be able to talk about it on a podcast and to say those things, like I'm sure that was really tough for you. Did you ever have this fear of, you know, pressing record on that podcast episode or releasing that podcast? Because I know for me, when I went on my first episode of the podcast, I wanted to hide under the cover for like 2 weeks. It was like, people are reading my diary. But I also felt like a very strong purpose to get my message out there. And how was that for you to get that out there? Do you feel like you'd done enough work at that point that you were ready to share it, or is there still that scary imposter syndrome within you?
I'll be honest here, see at the start, it probably was a wee bit of like, I'm going to prove to people that I've got better, and this is, you know, what way I live my life now. Like, that's probably like 3 years ago, but see now, it's not even about me. Like, I'm telling that story of me, but it's not about me anymore, do you know what I mean? It's about the next person who comes through these doors and be like, right, I need help. And I think that what I just spoke about too, especially see the amount of people, especially in the rehab centre, and people who are like suffering with addiction, like it's like they're afraid to actually talk, girls and boys, about this type of abuse and different scenarios which have happened because of what may be the result of it in terms of, you know, families and breakups and different things like that. So me doing what I'm doing is not about me. It's like I have a purpose way greater than what me just telling a story is, do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that keeps me going. So anytime I'm going and doing talks or doing a podcast, I'll be like, get over myself, like, because it's not to do with you, don't know, it's about that person maybe listening and going like, yeah, I need to do what he done, and that's, yeah. I don't know if what way do you deal with that now though? With me,
I feel like I'm a bit like you. I don't feel like it's about me anymore. It can be hard to. There was times in my life when the podcast came out where I freaked out, or one bad comment or one remark would have knocked me completely. But I always come back to my why, and it's taken me a long time to get to that, because you can get caught up in it, you know, the whole podcast and Instagram, the feeling like you have to do so much, and comparison syndrome to other people who are doing similar work. But now I think I've got very grounded coming back to Ireland. Living in Australia, I feel like I got in a little bubble, and my ego kind of started to go a little bit, where I was like, yeah, and then I find that when I was looking in the mirror, I didn't recognise that person anymore, and I thought, I don't remember why you started out doing this work. So I've had to come back to humble grounds and realise, you know, if all of this went away tomorrow, at least I can go to bed knowing I'm a good person, you know, that I've done my best today, and I've helped someone. It's not about the social media side of things. I know it's different for guys and stuff, but I suppose you can get caught up in it, and the silliness of it as well. So I try and come back to it, but in terms of the podcast, I just always speak from the heart, and I never listen back to my episodes anymore. I used to do that and be like, delete, can't say that, or God no, you can't tell everybody everything. But yeah, it's a very vulnerable place to put yourself in. Like, you know, it's, you know, it's like a counselling session, podcasting, and it helps a lot of people, but also there'll be a lot of people listening in and critically listening in, so
yeah,
it's tough.
It is, but you said something there about going with your heart, and I think that's the big difference between me, even from I got out of rehab, to me today. Like I'm constantly trying to focus and living like at a soul level, because when like my head, and I'm sure you the same, like is the most fucking dangerous place in the world. Like, so anytime I'm living at a head level, even making decisions at a head level, is just like, because of that ego thing and that social media thing and that sort of, fuck, I'm not good enough, why am I doing this, I'm a fraud, like all this madness. I'm sure you've experienced that too. But anytime I go into my soul and live at a heart level, it's like knowing that you can put your head in the pillow and sleep at night because you're doing what's best by you and what's best by people around you. Like, so I think that is a big thing that you just said there, and that's important to note, like, because whenever you know that you're doing the right thing by you, then it makes life an awful lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to let you guys know about the amazing sponsors that I have for this podcast, who are Gym Plus Coffee. As many of you know, Gym Plus Coffee was founded by 3 friends fueled by a passion to make life richer. Gym Plus Coffee is one of Ireland's fastest growing lifestyle brands, and I'm honoured to have them as my podcast sponsor.
Use my discount code DOWNUNDER online and in store.
They have a mission to bring high quality sustainable clothing and accessories through their retail clubhouses across the UK, Ireland and globally through gympluscoffee.com. I think in terms of meals and being able to speak out, especially in the north of Ireland, we have one of the highest suicide rates in Europe. I think actually we do have the highest suicide rate in Europe. I don't know if you saw the BBC programme with Carl Frampton in recently, and it was all around this area of men really struggling. I find it just powerful what he was saying. And what do you think it is, Domhnall? Because for girls it's a lot easier to talk, right? Like, we go to have a cup of coffee with our friends, we, you know, have girls' nights and we cry over men, whatever, and we're able to talk a lot more and go on these retreats and wellness days and workshops. Men aren't able to do that, and I, a couple of months ago, went over to Poland to train with Wim Hof, like a lunatic. I was away for a week, and
do you want to do, like, give us a dance?
It's all over my Instagram. It's like crazy shit. Like, if anybody saw us,
like, it's amazing. Mick went over too, didn't he?
Yeah, it was amazing. Honestly, it was. But what I loved about it was, I looked around, there was 300 people there, and I was one of the only women. But it was all to do with mental health. But the only way that men were able to go to something like that over a retreat was, it was seen as more manly to get in the ice and do these crazy things. Like, we hiked up a mountain for 5 hours, and literally they were in trunks, I was in a bikini, just doing crazy shit, like, you know. And I just think, why does it take for men to do something macho like that, and why can we not get enough men like you to, what you're doing is just being honest and being open. Like, what do you think the problem is here?
The whole, like you said there, like with the north too, like we certain parts of, like, you're in the middle of the fall, you're actually between the falls and the Shankill here, which is one of the most depraved areas in Europe, off the back of, like, the troubles and stuff like that. And I think that my parents were brought up maybe to say nothing, that, like, you know, and there was never really that culture of coming talking about our feelings and sitting and going like, how are you feeling today, or what's going on today? It was like, shut up and get on with it type of thing. And I think that there's been a ripple effect as a result of that, like, but even deeper than that, like, I don't know, I think that a lot of it is like an ego thing, and this is the way you're supposed to be, like, and I talk about this in my podcast, like, about, like, society has us like thinking that we need to have all our ducks in a row, being like I need to do this. So as a man, even as a girl, like, you know, you go to school, you do your A levels, you go to university, you get a job, you get a man or a woman, you get married, you have kids, you get whatever, you live happily ever after, and you die, like, and that's just the way we're supposed to live. And I'm like, no, let's step out of that and do what's right for you. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, Colin. It's creating that space for men to talk. And like, I do a lot of like group therapy and stuff with people, and like AA, for an example. AA is one of the oldest organisations in the world, and it's everyone in the room talking about how they're feeling and talking about how their days went. Like, the power of that is unbelievable, and I love it. I prefer group therapy than one-to-ones, because the power of the group and the power of people and the power of us coming together as one. So, but like, I don't know, this is a wee bit hard to talk about as a fella, but see, tapping into your feminine side and you tapping into maybe going and doing that in your masculine side, like, I think we should be doing that an awful lot more, and like even talking about it a bit more, and being vulnerable with each other. Like, we, like myself and a few of Kevin's throne mates, Richie and Connor May, like, we meet up every Wednesday and we do the hot yoga together, and we then sit. And with wee books, with a book each for Wednesdays, like, and we'll fucking just throw everything out and just be vulnerable, and this is what's really going on, like, really going on. And you come away from that going, Jesus Christ, I shouldn't have opened my mouth, I shouldn't have told him that, like, because of my head then, but I know if I'm coming back into here, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's creating them bonds with people. But I don't know, your vibe attracts your trade too, and I think the people we surround ourselves with has a lot to do with that. Like, the amount of WhatsApp groups I've left and stuff in the last 2 years, being like, nah, I'm not, and that's been tough. And
Yeah.
I seen a video on Instagram a couple of weeks ago about vulnerability is the hardest place to be in, because it's the loneliest place, because there's very few people being vulnerable, like, and honest with themselves, because we always feel like we need to be part of whatever it is out there. And I'm so happy now that after, like, maybe doing the work and, like, genuinely what I said there about the person putting the mask off, like, I can look in the mirror and be like, even though I could get a bit better looking and need to shave and clean myself up, I can actually look at myself in the eye and say, do you know what, you're doing alright.
Yeah.
You're like, I actually like myself, and I think that's a good place to be in. Like, so I don't know, it's creating them sort of friend groups and them people. And like, I've probably sat for 2 years there, 2.5 years, on Fridays and Saturday nights on my own with a pizza, but knowing that it was the right thing by me, not going out and being with people who are just going to fucking bring me back down here, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's having it in us to do that, like. Can you relate that?
Yeah, it's hard. I gave up alcohol like nearly a year ago, and
Fair play.
Thank you.
Why?
Truthfully, my mental health.
Mm.
It wasn't for anything else. I see there's a lot of things trending online at the minute. It's become like a thing online, which is great, but as long as people are doing it for the right reasons. For me, it's not about clickbait. It's not about... I didn't actually share it on my Instagram for months after deciding to give it up, because I was ashamed. You know, it was a lot to do with how I felt with drink in my system, you know, in terms of I had suicidal thoughts before. I, you know, did things that I'd never do before. The fear and anxiety after a night out for a couple of days afterwards, and the blues after drinking. It was just... It was a lot for me. And you know I talk about Australia a lot, but in Sydney especially...
Were you in Australia?
Yeah. Talk about it a lot. I know, it's like my whole life. But everyone thought that they're like, Australia, yeah. I'm like, I know,
I'm
sorry. It's so bad. But the lifestyle over there, when you're away from your family and your friends that you grew up with, it can be a very lonely place. So what we do, a lot of us, is at the weekends fill that void through drinking. Yeah. There's a big drinking culture over there, and drug culture. But yeah, I gave it up, and coming back to Ireland was very difficult to try and navigate friendships again, and people wondering, well, why have you given up drink? Like, or you must have done something really bad if you give up drink. But if I had said, you know, I have a cocaine addiction and I've given up cocaine, then they might have said, yeah, fair enough. But when it comes to alcohol, people are a bit like, why? Or go on, just have a drink. Or does that mean, my friends, one of them said, so you're not having a drink with us at the airport? And I'm thinking, you know, when I say I'm giving it up, I've given it up. So it's just, it's very hard. I've lost a lot of people along the way, doing the work that I'm doing and doing it for myself. But it's exactly what you say. It's coming to the end of the day and thinking, am I happy with who I am? And I mean, there's been plenty of temptations just at the weekend when I was away. Big long days of drinking sessions with other friends, and times I think, fuck it, am I just actually antisocial now? Am I boring? Am I no fun? Maybe should I just have a drink? But staying true to my belief and going from the heart, like you said, I do feel like a better, happier version of myself. And I don't know how alcohol has become such a big part of our lives and why it had to be like that. I wish I could go back to 16-year-old Caroline and say, it's all right if you don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And if your friends aren't with you on that, then they're not actually your friends. And you can still have a life. It doesn't mean the end of your social life. Like, I go out and still party now and just dance on tables and pretend I'm drunk because the way that I'm dancing, you'd think it was. But yeah, I just think I get it. Like, I totally get it. It can be an isolating place. But like anything, if you're able to sit in on a Saturday night in your own company, that means you've done a lot of the inner work.
Yeah.
You know?
100%, and it's tough. And I was told when the first day I went to rehab, there's a thing up in Cuilmore, the good thing about recovery, the good thing is you get your feelings back, the bad thing is you get your feelings back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So actually having to sit with your feelings and process and being like, and I'd be honest, like my life isn't like all straight lines now, but I'm in control. Do you know what I mean? Like, I still have bad days, but they're not bad weeks, they're not bad months, they're days. Because I'm able to be like, okay, I'll feel sorry for myself here for a couple of hours, and then take myself out of it, look in and be like, what's really playing out here? What's actually going on here? And that's another big thing too that I actually wanted to say about. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and you know, Jimmy Carr was on Stephen Bartlett's podcast last year.
I listened to that episode. It's good.
So he was kind of saying about his life being shit the first 20 years, and the way he put it, he was like, the first, say on average we lived to we're 80, if you remember this. He was like, the first 20 years of my life was not good. So that's a quarter of my life. So am I going to let the next 3 quarters of my life, am I going to let this quarter of my life dictate the next 3 quarters of my life? Or am I going to use the first quarter of my life as ammunition for the next 3 quarters? Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
what
so true.
am I going to, and this is a big thing too, because in the society we live in, there's a fine line about what we're talking about here, about mental health and sort of well-being and, stories. And my story is just, it's a part of me now, but it's not me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm also a lot of other things. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a wee bit like I play for Antrim hurling, but I'm not just an Antrim hurler, I'm not just this, and I think that's, I mentioned their AA, like what a brilliant place, and it's got loads of people sober, but there's a lot of people in them rooms think because my name's Domhnall and I'm an alcoholic and they can't blossom, like, do you know what I mean? And it's something that I'm so passionate about. So am I a victim or am I a survivor? And that's something that I had to go and ask myself, like, because sometimes whenever the life isn't going on all straight lines and I get the wee speed bump, I go into victim mentality and be like, this happened to me and I wish that I had this and I was just normal and I could just go with someone and be,
Yeah.
No, but look at all the good things you're doing, you're actually a survivor, like,
yeah.
get on with it, like, do you know what I mean? And there's a lot, and I think that's why it's a fine line between sort of, we can deal with our problems and do all the inner work and, but you need a wee bit of resilience too. I think that's just my opinion of it, and you need to, because I spent a long time in that sort of victim mentality of the whole world's against me and I hate the world and all this crack, like, but really it's how I look at the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's important to note.
Yeah, it's easy to get boxed into that and feel like the poster boy for that, that has to be something that you have to wear for the rest of your life. But like you say, it's not about you anymore, and you've done that work. You recorded one of your first episodes nearly 3 years ago or whatever, but that's now past, and that's next part is workshops, helping others. I want to ask, you talk about the group therapy being really helpful.
Yeah.
What does a day look like for you, Domhnall? Like day to day, what kinds of things do you have to do to really keep your mentality in check? I talk about getting up very early in the morning,
See that?
doing a bit of journaling, and I also like to do things like stay off my phone until 9 a.m. Try and get off it by 7. Some days I can't do it, some days I mess up and I have bad days too. But what are some key things in your day that really help you be the best version of yourself?
We spoke at the start, I'm really good at, my job at the minute is really can be heavy, you know, like I'm dealing with people who are in early recovery. I'm actually full time now, but let's face it, I go to the rehab centres a couple of days a week, but it's heavy, do you know what I mean, Caroline? And I need to make sure that I'm filling up my own cup all the time, rather than, you know, constantly pouring at the other people, like, do you know. So I meditate every morning, like I love meditation.
Amazing.
And I meditate every night as well, going to bed. And that's something that I picked up from rehab, and like we used to get up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning or something in Kilmore, and used to go in and meditate, and it used to be like meditate, I couldn't sit still or anything, but now I love it because it's just my safe space. Journal, like I've journaled every day for the last, it'll be 4 years now.
Amazing.
Which is mental.
There's something so powerful about it. I used to think it was very airy-fairy and who journals and all the rest, but it's when you do it consistently for a long period of time is when you actually see the impact of it.
And I think 100%, and it's like, it's even like journaling doesn't need to be like, there's no right or wrong way to do it either, like it's just throwing out whatever, like, and I love writing down whatever a good day, but why?
Yeah.
And that's probably my biggest problem. I can't just sit and like watch something like a podcast or do something and without being like, but why? I'm getting into it, and that's a whole big can of worms. But anyway, I love my work is heavy, but I would only work like 3 or 4 days a week, to be honest, and the rest of the time I would focus on me. So I'm still doing a lot of work within me too, like a lot of like somatic work, a lot of things that I still need to heal and to grow in terms of the stuff that we spoke about there, like, so.
Yeah.
And I can't take my eye off the ball, do you know what I mean? Because I think the day you take your guard down or the day you think you're healed is the day we're beat. Like, so I still do a lot of work within myself, like, so we do the hot yoga twice a week, and then I love the sea as well, like, so on top of being with the county hurlers, because we're out 6 nights a week too, like, so it's pretty hectic, you know, but that just finished there, so I'm actually kind of glad, to be honest, because it'll give me a wee bit more time to keep working on myself, like, because it's the journey with no destination, and I'm loving it. All the ups and downs and bumps, but it's nice, like, and I'm really grateful too, like, and having a wee bit of gratitude too, Caroline. It's important, but yeah, that's my days are them wee things, them wee tools with the meditation and the journaling and the just creating that space for yourself. Like, I love Fairhead up in the Antrim coast, like that's where I go to find out all my answers. So
I've never been.
Class.
Oh, amazing.
It's amazing. So yeah,
That'll
what do you do? Well, you're getting up every morning.
I get up every morning, love a wee sea dip or a
Yeah.
nice bath, and just trying to be more present, trying to actually just find gratitude in coming back home. I ran away for a long time too, and it's, you know, coming home and actually even on the rainy days thinking it's pretty beautiful here, you know, so just trying to be humble again, not get caught up in things. So yeah, that's what I like to do, and not thinking too far ahead. I'm a bit like you, trying not to think of the final destination, just being like, see how tomorrow goes, and then the next day, you know.
100%. Someone said to me before, if you've 1 foot in yesterday and 1 foot in tomorrow, then you're pissing off of the day.
That's so true. So true. Domhnall, I want to finish with, what bit of advice could you share to anyone listening, especially some young males, that you wish you could have given yourself many years ago?
Just be honest, and do what's right by you. People love you, even though you might not feel like they do. There's always someone there who admires you, even if they don't directly talk to you. There might be someone over social media or something just loves your stuff or whatever. So you're loved and you're capable of giving love, and just have a wee bit of respect for yourself, like a wee bit of self-respect, and tell yourself you deserve more than what I was actually playing out, and be vulnerable, because there's power in it, like, and the more you be yourself, the more people who are like you will come and join your tribe rather than the other way about, like, so don't go chasing friend groups or Snapchat groups or Instagram, whatever, followers or whatever, because it's all nonsense, like, you know, so
Yeah.
just be true to yourself.
Thank you for being so honest and so
No
vulnerable, and thank you for all that you're doing for the North.
No
I
bother.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So,
Thanks for letting me use your studio.
do I have to leave or does she have to leave?
Let's go now.
No bother. You happy enough?
Amazing. Yeah.
Right, okay.
That was